always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to accompany a knife, a fork, and a spoon. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. And the dish ran away with the spoon. The final line in a popular children's verse. This hour, I thought we might go through the utensil drawer and try to figure out why a fork, and not the others, might be the most important implement to one person. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Lady Antebellum and Need You Now, and Evanescence with My Immortal. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. This is an excerpt from the '03 edition of the Friendship Book of Francis Gay, published by D.C. Thompson and Company. Gay writes, and I quote, "Have you heard of a love spoon? It was a wooden spoon which young men in Wales used to carve for their sweetheart. It would be decorated with symbols, a horseshoe for luck, chain links to show the links between the couple, a heart for the love he held for her. A key meant that he wanted to lock the girl in his heart forever." Unquote from the '03 edition of the Friendship Book of Francis Gay, published by D.C. Thompson and Company. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Leona Lewis, Bleeding Love, Mariah Carey, and Always Be My Baby, and Jason Mraz, and I'm Yours. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com for this Tuesday, May the 11th of 2010. There are quite a few knives in the utensil drawer that I've just opened. Merle Shane, in her bestseller, Hearts That We Broke Long Ago, a seal book published by McClelland and Stewart, wrote, and I quote, "I suspect that it starts with the first deep wound, and after that, we favor the place where the knife went in." Unquote. She also writes, in that same book, and again I quote, "There is an old Hindu saying about the melon and the knife. Whether the melon falls on the knife or the knife falls on the melon, the saying goes, it's the melon that suffers." Some of us hurl ourselves at life, and others crouch and wait for it to roll up over us. But you can usually tell who it is who is taking on life and who it is who is fending it off, and whether this is a new game or whether it is old. Unquote, Merle Shane, from Hearts That We Broke Long Ago. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Kelly Clarkson, Already Gone, and the Eagles in the Hotel California. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. And speaking of knives, Then a woman said, "Speak to us of joy and sorrow." And he answered, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked. And the selfsame well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain." Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirit the very wood that was hollowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you say joy is greater than sorrow, and others say, nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep upon your bed. Verily, you are suspended like scales between your sorrow and your joy. Only when you are empty are you at standstill and balanced. When the treasure keeper lifts you to weigh his gold and his silver, needs must your joy or your sorrow rise or fall. Khalil Gibran in The Prophet, published in 1923 by Alfred A. Knopf. Lovers and Other Strangers. From iTunes and CHFI.com. Bee Gees, How Deep Is Your Love, and Norah Jones, and Don't Know Why. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Frank Norris in Complete Works, published by Doubleday, wrote, and I quote, "Once I had occasion to buy a silver soup ladle. The obliging salesman brought forth quite an array of them, including ultimately one that was as plain and unadorned as the unclouded sky, and about as beautiful. But the price, it was nearly double any of the others. You see," the salesman explained, "in this highly ornamental ware, the flaws don't show. This plain one has to be the very best. Any defect would be apparent. There, if you please, is a final basis of comparison of all things, the bare dignity of the unadorned that may stand before the world all unashamed in the consciousness of perfection." Unquote. Frank Norris, Incomplete Works, published by Doubleday. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Josh Groban, and You Raise Me Up, and Christina Aguilera, and Beautiful. And I'm Don Jackson from iTunes and CHFI.com. Derek recently sent me this wonderful story in my email, and I thought it would make the perfect ending to our program this hour. It's called A Woman and a Fork. Its author, unknown, and I quote, There was a young woman who had been diagnosed with a terminal illness and had been given 3 months to live. So, as she was getting her things in order, she contacted her pastor and had him come to the house to discuss certain aspects of her final wishes. She told him which songs she wanted sung at the service, what scriptures she would like read, and what outfit she wanted to be buried in. Everything was in order, and the pastor was preparing to leave when the young woman suddenly remembered something very important. "There's one more thing," she said excitedly. "What's that?" came the pastor's reply. "This is very important. I want to be buried with a fork in my right hand." The pastor stood looking at the young woman, not knowing quite what to say. "That surprises you, doesn't it?" the young woman asked. "Well, to be honest, I'm puzzled by the request," said the pastor. The young woman explained. "My grandmother once told me this story, and from that time on, I have always tried to pass along its message to those I love and those who are in need of encouragement. In all my years of attending socials and dinners, I always remember that when the dishes were being cleared, someone would inevitably lean over and say, 'Keep your fork.' It was my favorite part because I knew that something better was coming, like velvety chocolate cake or deep dish apple pie, something wonderful and with substance. So I just want people to see me there in that casket with a fork in my hand. And I want them to wonder what's with the fork. Then I want you to tell them, 'Keep your fork. The best is yet to come.'" The pastor's eyes welled up with tears of joy as he hugged the young woman goodbye. He knew this would be one of the last times he would see her before her death. But he also knew that the young woman had a better grasp of heaven than he did. She had a better grasp of what heaven would be like than many people twice her age, with twice as much experience and knowledge. She knew that something better was coming. At the funeral, people were walking by the young woman's casket, and they saw the cloak she was wearing and the fork placed in her right hand. Over and over the pastor heard the question, "What's with the fork?" And over he smiled. During his message, the pastor told the people of the conversation he had with the young woman shortly before she died. He also told them about the fork and what it symbolized to her. He told the people how he could not stop thinking about the fork, and told them that they probably would not be able to stop thinking about it either. He was right. So the next time you reach down for your fork, let it remind you ever so gently that the best is yet to come. And keep your fork. Unquote. Its author unknown, but what a wonderful story. Lovers and Other Strangers, from iTunes and CHFI.com. I hope you will tell all your friends about Lovers and Other Strangers. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.